Legend of Total War here, and today we're doing another Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires campaign review, this time covering Miao Ying. So Miao Ying is one of two legendary lords for Cathay added in Total War Warhammer 3, and she starts her campaign off at Nangao, which is in the northwestern part of Cathay, and Cathay being in the easternmost part of the map. Her campaign to begin with revolves around taking out the rebel lords of Nanyang, but that's pretty easy. It's basically just a training mission. But really this here is a distraction for the real threat, which is what's going to happen with the Great Bastions. You really don't want any of the Great Bastion settlements to fall, or else the Kurgans will come through at a more rapid rate. And since Nangao is pretty much the closest settlement to the Bastions, it's basically you're the first line of defense there. Now, you don't start off with any of these settlements, so you either need to ruin dwell them after the Imperial Wardens lose it, or you need to confederate them as quickly as possible so you can gain control of these settlements before they're blown to smithereens. But Village the Kurtzling, his Norskan vassal, the Kurgans, and possibly Kolek Suneater will just pour through here as often as they feel like it. You can, of course, send forces out here to take them out, but it's pretty much impossible to prevent the Kurgan warbands from completely disappearing in the game. They'll usually find a way back because of this particular mechanic here. Even if you manage to do everything you possibly can to slow down their advance, every now and again they're just going to respawn. So you're just going to need to leave some forces there. So that'll keep you occupied until sort of like the mid sort of campaign as you start to expand out, assuming you're successful. Now, in terms of their faction mechanics, one of the more interesting parts of Cathay is their legendary lords. So both Miao Ying and Zhao Ming are unique legendary lords in Total War Warhammer 3 in that they are both able to transform into completely different single entity unit types mid-battle and then of course transform back. They're the only characters in the game that can do that. The other character that can kind of do that is Malice Darkblade, but he doesn't change his unit type, and his transformation is really just more of a power-up, and it's a one-way transformation. So Miao Ying, as an example, she goes into battle on foot in her human form, where she's a decent spellcaster and also a decent melee fighter. And if you choose to, you can transform into a dragon and be able to fly, because she can't fly in her human form, taking out flying targets, and also better at fighting big monsters due to the ability of dragons not getting too badly stun-locked, but they become way more vulnerable to missiles and anti-large. So choosing which form to play as with your Cathayan legendary lords gives them a unique edge over every other legendary lord in the game. They've also got very powerful skill lines. Now, on that note, in terms of not powerful skill lines, come their generic heroes, the Alchemist and the Astromancers. Now, the Cathayan heroes, the generic heroes, are not very good at all. They are among some of the weakest, least interesting heroes in the game. They just don't have very good skill lines, having basically just a spell line, some really weak skills, and some really pathetic mounts. They're not good melee fighters, and they're not particularly good spellcasters. The game supposedly compensates that by giving you mastery of the elemental winds, but it just doesn't really compensate you enough compared to what you can do with other generic heroes of other factions. So typically speaking, the heroes of Cathay, the main purpose of using them is to rebalance the yin and yang, to try to get a balance here. Now, talking on to that, this is one of the more interesting parts of Cathay, maintaining harmony. Typically speaking, the best bonus is to maintain an equal balance between yang and yin. Every single character and most of the buildings, at least the economic buildings, will be ranked as either yang or yin, and keeping a balance between them will yield massive benefits, and going overboard with one or the other can yield significant benefits but also some massive penalties. But typically speaking, maintaining harmony is ideal, and using the heroes, recruiting and disbanding to maintain that harmony, that's really, I think, their main purpose in a Cathay campaign, which is fine because I think this is a decent campaign mechanic. In addition to that, their economy is quite robust. They've got access to the Ivory Road, sending out caravans. Now, this is a campaign mechanic that is pretty useful at the start of the campaign to get a whole bunch of really good items and a lot of money. However, as the campaign progresses, if the Ivory Road becomes occupied with factions that are hostile towards you, you could very easily find that none of your caravans are going to get through. So it could be a priority for you as your campaign progresses to control the Ivory Road so that there's safe passage between here, because any faction that's hostile towards you, if they see your caravan, they can just attack it. And if you're, not playing as Cathay, it's actually kind of more beneficial for you, because if you see a caravan and plundering it, you get a ton more money than what they were going to get if their caravan had succeeded. Now, they've also got the Wujing Compass. This is kind of a weak mechanic. You basically just swing this around on 1 and 4 points, gaining some pretty passive bonuses. Some of them do have some active abilities in there, but most of the time this is a very forgettable mechanic. It's just not very potent. The more potent stuff is the harmony and the Ivory Road mechanics. Overall, I think that Miao Ying's campaign is quite interesting, but I just think that there are some elements to Cathay that just aren't quite there yet. It's pretty obvious that Cathay is going to get a lot of DLC across the years, because they really do feel unfinished, but it doesn't mean their campaign is bad at this point. I'd probably recommend playing this campaign on probably like normal difficulty if you want to play it for optimal fun, but if you're looking for a challenge, legendary difficulty is definitely doable, not a problem. It just depends on what you prefer to play. But I think the optimal sort of sweet zone for actually having fun is probably normal or hard difficulty. Anyway, that's the end of this one here, guys. Hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Miao Ying's campaign, and let me know which legendary lord you'd like me to cover next. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.